verse 10 to 12, we see that Paul is expressing hope, and he is expressing belief in the people, in the church in Galatia. And what he is saying here is that that he is having a certain confidence in them through the Lord, that they will be none otherwise minded. So he says, I've got confidence in you through the Lord's rulership and through his doing. He doesn't trust their flesh. He doesn't trust their own ability. He says, I've got confidence in you that the Lord will actually bring a change of mind to you. He comes and he talks a little bit about that, and then he expresses his, I almost want to call it, I don't want to say a hatred, but his anger would be the right word. His anger towards those that troubled them and got them to fall away. We can imagine how Paul was going and planting churches everywhere. A thorn in the flesh was given him. That would actually be someone who goes and Judaizes all the churches where he preaches, gets them to fall back. We've seen in chapter 1 that, I think it's verse 6, it says there that they so soon has fallen away from him, where it actually expresses that it's a common thing that people fall away from what I teach because of this magnitude of preachers and powerful teaching of the law. As we have explained, the Gentiles didn't have the writings and the prophets and those kind of things. And we can then imagine that they would be easily influenced by someone that says, we've got the writings, we know. Paul's made a little bit of a mistake. Here it's written, and then deceive these people. So Paul comes and he expresses his anger in a very radical way as well. Let us read verse 10 to 12. It says, I have confidence in you through the Lord, that you will be none otherwise minded, but that he that troubles you shall bear his judgment, whosoever he be. And I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? Then is the offense of the cross ceased. I would they would even cut off which trouble you. So what he says here, he says, I would they were even cut off which trouble you. In the last verse, I think there are different ways to say that. Most of the translations basically says that he wishes that they actually castrate themselves, goes all the way. So what he's saying is he's really upset. His heart is really hurt. He wants these people to come back to the Lord. He doesn't want them to be troubled. And now he's expressing what is in his heart towards these people. He says, I wish, or this is what he says, but he that troubles you shall bear his judgment, whosoever he is. He's not saying that God will punish him. What he is saying is that the judgment that he has in what he believes, which is not beneficial, shall be upon him. So what he is saying, remember, the one who is teaching you, he is going to find corruption in his life. Corruption, I'm not talking about just financial corruption. I'm talking about decay. You're going to see basically the judgment that God expressed in the beginning, which is, should you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will die. You will find that this person's life will go backwards, that he will not have the fruit of the Spirit, that there will be pride in his life. You'll find all those kind of things, and eventually he will reap corruption. And that is what you will see in him. Know that this person is going to have that. But he that troubles you shall bear his judgment, whosoever he be. We find that when Paul says, whosoever he be, I see that connected to earlier in chapter 2 when he was visiting the church in Jerusalem, where he was basically saying, none of these people, some of them seem to be pillars, James and Peter and some of these guys, but I don't care whosoever they were. It doesn't mean anything to Paul because he knows that God is not an acceptor of the person. So here he comes and he says the very same thing. And what I hear underlying here, I cannot prove it, But I'm thinking that he is saying, I don't even care if it is James or if it is Peter or if it is one of the apostles. I don't care. Whosoever it is that preaches this thing, he shall bear the fruit of that message in his life. Obviously, unless he repents. Because here the whole context of Galatians as pertaining to repentance is that you can change your mind back to the truth again and find the benefits of Christ in your life. So if you have fallen from grace, if you have come to a place where you only believe in works, you can come back. You can believe again. That's why he's writing this letter. Okay, so it's not as if Paul is saying, has this person preached once, then his life is going to be destroyed and fire is going to come from heaven and just kill him. That is not what he is saying here. He says in verse 11, and I, brethren, if I yet preach circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? He comes back again to the lie that was told about him, which he addressed in chapter 2 in depth. And he is saying here, it has been taught and it's been told to you that I, Paul, I'm preaching circumcision. I don't know exactly about the timetables, but we know that Paul did circumcise Timothy. And I think the fact that he did circumcise, have Timothy circumcised, was troublesome in his ministry at some form, because they would think that he's preaching circumcision. But Paul said that Titus shouldn't be circumcised. Why? Because the reason why they wanted Titus to be circumcised is so that Titus could become part of the people of God. But Paul had Timothy circumcised, not so that he can become part of the people of God, but so that they would not kill the boy, that they will not destroy their ministry and life. It was a completely different reason. The one form of circumcision is, or let me put it this way, what you believe about circumcision when you're circumcised is actually the big thing in the heart of Paul. That's why he could have Timothy circumcised, because it would be basically becoming a Jew for the Jew, but not believing in what the Jew believes in. That is what he is basically, what I'm basically getting to here. So he says here, he says, brethren, if I was still preaching circumcision, why do I yet suffer persecution? So he said that if I will go around and preach, listen, just you Christians be circumcised and those kind of things, he would basically not be persecuted anymore. In this passage, confessing that most of his persecution comes from the Jews. That is what he is saying. He is persecuted by the very people he loves, which he sees as his own countrymen, which he wishes that they would be saved. That is who he is persecuted. And then he goes on, he says, if I stop to preach if I start to preach circumcision, then the offense of the cross has ceased. What he is actually saying is that what is offensive in the cross was to say that God made of the two, that is both Jew and Gentile, one new man, and that both Jew and Gentile died in the cross of Jesus. And that is very, very offensive to the Jewish people. I don't think it was so offensive to the Gentile people, and the reason why it was not so offensive to the Gentile people was because they didn't see themselves as the people of God, to whom a law was given, to whom the promises was given, to whom the covenants pertained, to whom the adoption pertained, and all those kind of things. They just saw themselves as people worshiping different gods, and none of them felt that they were special because of ethnicity. But now, Paul comes and he says, I am now preaching that in the Messiah, in the reign of the Messiah, there is no more Jew, neither a Gentile. And that was very offensive. And because of the offense of the cross, because of what the stumbling stone, what would happen is these Jews, as well as Jewish Christians, would really hate the Apostle Paul. And they would come together and there would be an uproar even in the church. Should Paul preach amongst the Jews that there's no need for circumcision amongst Jews? They would say it's okay if you preach it amongst the Gentiles, just don't preach it amongst the Jews. But Paul comes and he says he preached the cross in a way that it is very offensive to a Jewish person. And he comes to these Gentiles in Galatia now, or the church in Galatia, and he says, people, look at how I am constantly persecuted. Look at how I am still suffering. Let that be a proof to you that I am still preaching the original message that I preached when I was with you. And this lie that's being told that I am now preaching the circumcision and have repented from my old mess, don't believe that. I am still being persecuted. Why? Because I have not changed the message. Now that is Galatians 5 verse 10 to 12.